So Mike's question is, it's great to hear all the stats, but what about the efficiencies of these organizations, specifically Project C.U.R.E?
Right. So I'm lazy and discovered that if you don't spend money, you don't need to raise money. And so honestly, that had a lot to do with why we do what we do. So if you come to our office, my desk was donated. It came in off a World Vision load, and it looked nicer than the desk I had, so I shipped the desk that I had, and I kept the good one. And it's a pretty nice desk. We paint our own offices. We reupholster chairs. That's what we do. And because of that, our overhead rate is actually less than 2%, which is probably too low, actually. There's an interesting book called Uncharitable, and it's written about this notion that maybe we ought to start judging nonprofits by a different standard. Maybe the question of how much money do you not spend is not the right question. Maybe the question is how much do you do with the money you do spend, right? We're not there as an industry yet. I don't know what you guys do in a Goodwill. That's a tough question, right? Because nobody really knows how to measure effectiveness. How do you measure outcomes? How do you I live like right downtown. I'm 2 blocks from the rescue mission. 5 years ago when I moved down there was a bunch of homeless people. Last night when I walked to dinner, it's the same people. And if what we were measuring was the effectiveness of what we're doing to get people off the streets, we're failing. And Jamie Van Leeuwen is a good friend of mine, and I know he'd probably shoot me for saying that. But we're not measuring effectiveness, and we're not doing a great job of measuring outcomes because a lot of the outcomes aren't there. And so we choose to measure things like how much money do you not spend every year, and we assume that, and I understand the reason is because there's knuckleheads like the guys at United Way that were paying themselves $1 million and flying around on private jets and stuff, and it was wrong. But what we did was we went into a proxy and said, well, let's figure out how good you are by how much money you don't spend. And I don't think that's right. So somewhere, it's going to take some bright minds to sit down and figure this out and say, wait a minute, how do you measure what you do? How fast are you putting yourself out of business? Now, there's an interesting measure. Because if we're really doing a great job, we ought to fix the problem and not the symptom, right? I want to go out of business. I don't want to work at the Haran Hospital in Merida, Mexico anymore. I want them to look at me and say, thanks, we got it from here. And that's happened to us. It's happened in Estonia. It's happened in some other hospitals. That's the right answer is how do you do that? So all that to say this, a lot of you sit on boards of nonprofits and stuff. Start thinking about that. Start that hard discussion with your executive directors and your presidents about what do we measure here? Because you always get more of what you measure, right? We know that. So what are we measuring? And how do we measure effectiveness? And how do we, if our mission really is to educate kids, how do we measure what we're doing? And stop measuring this other stuff. I mean, I'm proud of the fact that, Forbes ranks us that way. I'm proud of the fact that we've got a 4-star charity navigator and guide star ranking. That's cool stuff. But I'm not sure that it matters. What does matter is how many lives we saved. That matters a lot, right? Did we change the world? That matters a lot.